Hello and welcome along to this free training session from Major Labl. In the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to do three things. I'm going to start off by introducing Major Labl, who we are and how do we work. Then I'm going to introduce myself. Then we're going to get to the heart of it. I'm going to give you a 6-week countdown to releasing your music with a simple weekly planning checklist. So what should you be doing each week in the countdown to release? And crucially, what should you be doing after you've released your music to make sure everyone goes to listen to it? So if that sounds good, then stay tuned. There's a lot of information to cover. So I wanted to start by introducing myself. My name is Mark Knight. I'm the founder of Major Labl and also the Right Chord Music Group. And I guess there's kind of three parts to my experience. So for the last 22 years, I've worked as a marketing strategist for some big global agencies, including Wavemaker, which is part of Group M and WPP, Fruit Music, and Red Mandarin, a sponsorship consultancy. And in that time, my focus has really been helping kind of blue chip clients spend their marketing money most effectively. So helping them decide whether it's TV advertising or partnerships or out-of-home advertising. What's the combination that's going to get them to growth, and understanding how people buy and consume their products. So I work with the likes of Vodafone, Coca-Cola, Nivea, Evian in that time. And it's amazing actually, but when you look at it, you can recognize the similarities between brand marketing and band marketing. And that's always been a big focus of mine with Major Labl, is to bring some of the discipline of the brand marketing world into music marketing, which I often think has been lacking. So that's me as a marketing strategist. I'm also, I would suggest, a kind of new music champion of sorts. So back in 2010, I set up the Right Chord Music blog. It's grown in that time. Originally it was set up because I was managing a band called Black Chords, and I thought, well, actually if I could write about Black Chords on a blog and it would help people find their music. So that's kind of how it started. We've now got about 15 writers. We've also opened up our submissions recently to other like-minded music blogs. So one submission to Right Chord Music means you could end up with your music shared across multiple blogs, playlists, and even podcasts as well. We call that the RCM Indie Collective, and it's growing all the time, which is really exciting. And Right Chord Music is now 5th in FeedSpot's top 50 unsigned music blogs and websites, and hopefully we're closing in on number 1 in the future. So that's me as the new music champion. In terms of artist management, I've worked with a variety of artists over the years. I mentioned Black Chords, who signed to Universal, ABC Universal in Australia. Also worked with a duo called the Daydream Club, who are probably the most successful duo you've probably never heard of. So they remained independent, they're unsigned if you like, but they have the distinction of having over 100 million streams on Spotify. So they earn an income from their music whilst being independent, which is great because it means all the money goes directly to them. They're not giving it away to a label. And there's also this picture on this page here of me standing on stage presenting in the blazing sunshine of Cannes at the Cannes Lion Festival, where I was talking about a project I was running called Project Rebel, which was the idea was to take an unsigned band and to break the unsigned band in 10 weeks using just the power of media, content and storytelling. So no radio, no press, no kind of traditional music channels. But yeah, how could we do that? And we succeeded. So the band Broken Whip Rebels are now signed to Universal and doing well. But it just goes to show really how you can cut through with great music foremostly, but also great storytelling and great marketing. And lots of the thinking behind our approach for Major Labl came from not only that project, but also my work with the Daydream Club as well. So next up I want to introduce Major Labl. Major Labl helps transform unsigned artists into independent artists. And we provide marketing consultancy and creative solutions to unsigned and independent artists from all genres all over the world. And if you want to read some case studies about the work we've done, then head to majorlabl.com, click on the case study link, and there's a ton of case studies in there. You can see the work we do. But this kind of mindset of unsigned to independent is kind of important to me because I think it sets the tone. The worst kind of artist in a way is an artist that kind of says, I'm going to wait for people to come to me. I'm going to wait to be signed. I'm going to wait for someone to land a big deal on my desk, and that's going to transform me. The independent artist spirit is much more about being proactive, going out there, making things happen for you, and thinking about yourself almost as a startup business. So having an understanding of your cash flow, your profitability, what works, and effectiveness. And that's really the kind of mindset we try to shape and to create with our artists at Major Label. And I mentioned just on the last slide, we're part of the Right Core Music group. So Right Core Music was blog, Major Label is the consultancy. That's how it's split out. I set up Major Label because after 10 years of managing and working with independent artists, I concluded really that the traditional model of music marketing, which has been designed for Major Label, the original Major Label, the Sonys, the Warners, the big name artists back in the 80s, which really focused around radio, press and live, just didn't work for unsigned or independent artists in the noughties. And let me explain a bit more about why. So if you think about the way radio works, well, if you're an unsigned artist, there are no guarantees. You could spend £1,500 easily on a radio plugger and at the end of it have nothing to show for it. Or you might get what you call spot play, so a one-off play, often late night on a regional radio station. And honestly, that doesn't really do anything. The key to success, whether it's in music or in advertising generally, is about reach and frequency. So that means lots of people, lots of times. Now, if you're getting one spot play on radio for one play, then that's not reach and it's not frequency. Your audience is just smaller and smaller and smaller. But think about how radio works. If you're Beyonce or Radiohead, you get that guaranteed airplay because you're assigned to a major label. You get on the playlist and you might have 5 plays a day for 5 weeks. That gives you guaranteed reach and frequency. So radio can work, but only if you're getting those regular playlist spots. Now, press is exactly the same for unsigned artists. So if you're a signed artist and you're releasing music, I'm going to pick on Beyonce, again, every press outlet will want to write about her and her album. If you are an unsigned artist, obviously they don't. So what happens is you end up getting pushed to smaller and smaller blogs, magazines, fanzines, etc. Now, the worst case scenario is you end up on a blog that hasn't actually been indexed by Google and your content can't be found, right? So it's this idea that any press is good press only goes so far. If people can't find any review about you, then there may as well not be a review in the first place. So again, press, no guarantees. If you're an unsigned artist, you can spend your money on a PR company and walk away with very, very little coverage that really means anything or drives any kind of interest in your music. And then live. Now again, we love live music at Major Label. I go to gigs all the time and absolutely love it and adore it, but if all you're doing when you're playing live is playing to the same 20 friends, so you're kind of there out of obligation, you're not growing your fan base, you're not growing engagement in your music. So you have to go beyond the same 20 friends. So if you think about those three together, radio, press and live, which have been, as I say, a staple for how major labels have promoted music in the past, you can see why it just doesn't work effectively for unsigned artists or independent artists. So that was our start point, really. How do we make that better to make it more effective for the unsigned artist? We have to learn how to build engagement at scale. That is the key. So because of that, they're the reasons why I created Major Label. So we know what doesn't work. So what do we do differently? Well, Major Label has its own distinct process, and we start with the channels you can control rather than the channels you can't control. That is a key difference from a radio plugger or a PR agency you might have worked with in the past. It's about control. So we're going to focus on social media, we're going to focus on your website, we're going to focus on digital marketing you can control, and I'll talk a bit more about in a second. The second point is we borrow from advertising best practice. So what works in the wider brand world? What are big brands doing and how can we learn from their approaches? So it's about reaching people, it's about engaging, it's about converting, and it's about retargeting. And retargeting is absolutely critical. And if you haven't come across retargeting before in music, then frankly, you're not doing it right. It's as simple as that. So retargeting is about getting finding a way to re-engage with people who've engaged with you previously. It's what every brand does, and it's been slow to find its way into music marketing, but that's exactly a key part of what we do. So we're going to help you create thumb-stopping social content and advertising campaigns that actually drive your play and follow account. And again, as I said before, if your music marketing isn't encouraging more people to listen, it's not working. So our approach is really about questioning everything, challenging the status quo, refusing to settle, disrupting, testing, refining, and testing again. And I think it's really important that we continue to understand that the world changes, right? So just because it's worked previously doesn't mean to say it's going to work again. We're always thinking about new ways and new opportunities to get music heard, and you should be too. So as I just said, we focus on the channels you can control, not the ones you can't. And social media is definitely a channel you can control. And actually the best thing about social media is it's also where the biggest audiences go, right? So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify in their own right are huge. Every time I write this presentation, I have to update the numbers because it just continues to grow and grow. So 2.3 billion active monthly users on Spotify, right? TikTok is growing at an alarming rate. There's more people watched video on TikTok than did on YouTube last year, which shows its growth, and it's come out of nowhere, right? So you have to be aware of these platforms and work out how you can get your messages out there. Spotify is, if you kind of put it side by side by radio, is actually the largest radio station in the UK, right? Compared to other music streaming services like Apple and Amazon, it has a 40% global market share. So we have to take Spotify seriously. It's where people are going. Now, it's all well and good trying to drive people to new places, but it's hard because most people spend most of their time on these social networks. So how can you engage with people who are already there? You've got a ready-made audience. That's the exciting thing. You're not having to drive people to a random music blog. I run a music blog, but if I ask how many of my friends have ever been to a music blog, very few, right? So go where the people are going. So I've spoken a bit about our approach to music marketing, but what I also want to talk to you about is what this isn't, right? So this isn't a guaranteed formula for success, right? I can't guarantee anyone 1 million streams. In fact, anyone that says they can is talking nonsense, right? Well, actually maybe they can buy streams, but they're not going to buy you fans. And this is what this is about. This is not about a quick solution or a short-term hack. This is about creating a repeatable strategy, a process you can use time and again. Now, as I said, we can't guarantee anyone's success, but what we can guarantee is that we will improve the way you plan to release music. That's what this is about, okay? But it's really, really important everyone understands that you can't make people listen to bad music twice, okay? And buying streams is not the answer. It's not delivering those fans. Bought streams can also just skew your audience targeting. So you get to the point where you just don't know who is actually genuine anymore. For us, success is about having high engagement, which means a low cost per stream. If you think about a car salesman, this is the kind of mindset you want to get into. A car salesman is much more likely to sell a car the moment someone arrives in his dealership and arranges that test drive and sits in the car, right? Once they sit in the car, they can feel the car as being theirs, and chances are they'll go and buy it. What are you doing to get people into your car showroom, right? If all you're doing is shouting, listen to my music, listen to my music, listen to my music, that's not enough, okay? So it's about building engagement, giving people a reason to be excited about you and your music, and then turning those one-time plays into fans and advocates. What we want to get to is where advertising becomes a growth driver, not a cost center. So you've got a formula, you've got an approach, you've got great product, you've got great music, and actually if you spend money to promote it, your audience will get bigger and bigger, right? It becomes a formula. That's where we want to get to. As I said on the last page, this is about collecting fans, not followers. And push marketing, where all you're doing is saying, listen to my music, listen to my music, it feels increasingly like it's dead. You need to pull people in, you need to give people a reason to engage. And part of the reason why that's so important is changes to privacy, right? So if you think about Apple Music and Facebook Apple have basically said that now they'll give their users a right to opt out of any kind of marketing message from an app. The moment they do that, and have done that, those Facebook advertising audiences shrink because less people are willing to accept the message. So it's about permission marketing. If you can get people to say, I want a relationship with you, I want to see your content, then that's really, really powerful. And that's what's called first-party data. So if you can get people to come to your website or engage with you in some way online to the point where they're handing over their information that you can then retarget, then that becomes really, really powerful. So think about what you could do to build a genuine relationship with fans where they want to spend time with you. Now, I've read an article about this very subject called Push Marketing is Dead, 10 Ways Independent Artists Can Succeed in 2022. It's on rightcallmusic.co.uk. If you head over there, you can see all of those tactics and techniques. But it's really important we think about this as we move forward. Now, from now we're going to go into the 6-week countdown to release. And I would say we're gonna go through this relatively quickly. I'm going to give you a sort of checklist of things to do. But obviously there might be some things where you go, well, I understand I need to do it, but I don't know how to do it. Now, if that is the case, then don't worry. We do have support for you. So beyond this free webinar or free seminar, there is an opportunity to access Major Labl and get the help and support you need. So there will be additional follow-up information available, so don't worry if things are going over your head. The great thing is you can obviously watch it back time and time again, but we do have more solutions. This is just really to give you a taster of what we can do and hopefully give you that guide to releasing music more effectively. So hopefully you now understand a bit more about who we are, what we do and why we do it. So now we're going to get to the focus of our free seminar today, which is to provide you with this 6-week countdown to release, a checklist of all the things you should be doing each week to make sure you are as ready as possible to release music as effectively as possible. Okay, so let's get going. You're 6 weeks away from releasing your music. What should you be doing? So the first step is to create the basic assets needed for the release. Obviously that means the audio. You want the highest quality music you can produce. Now, if you can't afford to go into a flashy studio and work with a producer, then think about using a mixer or masterer, someone who can add a bit of polish to your music to make it sound as good as possible. Then think about video. Are you going to make a full-length video? Can you afford to make a full-length video? If you can, then great, but if not, it doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. I think most people now don't watch 3.5-minute videos anyway, so maybe actually a smarter approach these days is to think about creating 15-20 second clips which you can create using stock footage from video libraries, something like Revio or even Canva could be just as effective and also helping you create that content purely for social media. Think about your release artwork. What's going to accompany your track when it hits Spotify or Apple Music? Again, first impressions count. Think about that artwork as being a vital touch point to get people to want to listen to your music. Then think about the hero story around the release, and you're going to hear that word hero story probably quite a lot from me. It's really important that you build a story that engages people. We spoke about that push versus pull marketing a few slides ago. Now, if all you do is say, I've got a new single out, that isn't a story. And as someone who runs an unsigned music blog, I can tell you that unsigned band releases unknown song even, isn't engaging, right? So what can you do that gives people a reason to engage, which is a story which goes beyond the music itself? And I'll give you an example. So this is a small picture on the right is an artist called Anna Wolf, and her track is called Silence. And in that track, there is a lyric about the voices screaming in your head, and the whole song is about the anxiety she suffered as a child. So it's about silencing anxiety, basically. So what we did is we got lots of her friends and family to hold up a piece of paper with head cropped off so you couldn't see who they were, so it's all anonymous, talking about the voice screaming in their head or their own personal anxiety. So beautiful black and white pictures which we then shared on Instagram and Facebook and promoted, and we aligned with the charity Anxiety UK and released the single during Mental Health Awareness Month. And suddenly there was a reason for people to come into the song and discover Anna Wolf beyond just the music itself, right? We weren't relying on them to only listen to the music. They had to buy into the story first as a way of discovering it. And of course, anxiety and mental health is a huge topic, rightly so. So that allowed us to reach a far greater audience than if we were just saying, Anna Wolf's got a new song out, right? So that's one example of a story, or a hero story. So think about your song, think about the lyrics, the meaning of a song, think about how it was written, where it was written, the music video. What is the story? What is the hook that can get people excited? And again, it doesn't always have to be true, right? You can create a hook around just an idea, right? It's about creating an idea that feels like it fits to the song. Effectively, this is like making an advertising campaign, and then write that idea into your press release as well. So you've got an engaging press release. Even if you can't write a great story, think about writing a great headline. What's that single sentence headline that's going to get people to open that email or look at that press release? Now, I would also suggest you create a Spotify playlist. Now, if you're releasing music for the first time, you obviously don't have anything other than your new song, but the moment that comes out, that can go on there. But think about the other songs that maybe inspired you to write your music as well. As you release more music, again, add it to your playlist. So think about this idea that when you get people to come to Spotify, rather than just hearing one of your songs and going away, if you're directing them to the playlist, in theory they could listen to 5 songs for the cost of getting them there for 1, right? So that's really efficient. Finally, think about 30 hashtags that you can use in social media to promote your song. And I would divide those 30 between the hero idea and kind of the hygiene of your song. So the hygienes could be about genre and style of music, but the other 15 could be about the idea. So in this case, it could be about anxiety, mental health. So how can you link your song to a bigger existing group of conversations? Okay, so that's week 6. Now we move on to week 5. Okay, so you've created all your content. Now in week 5, it's about getting ready for guests. Think about your social media or your website almost like a house. If you're trying to impress a new girlfriend or boyfriend or their parents, what you wouldn't want to do is invite them around when your house is a complete tip. You don't want to see their underpants on the floor. That is not going to impress anyone. So think about the same thing with your social media. When people first come to your Instagram page or your Facebook page or your website, what are they going to see first? Is it going to give them the impression you want of your band or your music? So if it's not, then you want to change it straight away. So releasing music is a great opportunity to take a step back and critically review what you've done before. Or if you're releasing for the first time, it's a chance to get it right. So this process, you should go through it every time you're releasing music. So look through your social media. If there's anything on there you don't like or you don't think it's quite right, you can just delete it. And make sure there's consistency. So when people travel between your profiles, they're seeing the same thing, the same colors, the same fonts, the same images. Once you've done that, then set up your Facebook ad account. Now this isn't just a Facebook page, this is an ad account which you can set up via business.facebook.com. And once you've done that, you can also start creating some audiences. And there's 4 different types of audiences. You want to focus on 3: the saved audience, the custom, and the lookalike. The saved audience is probably the kind of the most basic audience. So if that's, for example, you were targeting 18 35-year-olds who like Radiohead and live in London, that's the saved audience. The custom audience is kind of the exciting one, I think. It's the one which allows you to retarget people who've previously engaged with your content. So it could be people who've come to your Instagram page in the last 30 days, people who've come to your website, people who've looked at a video, people who've responded to a gig, of an invite on Facebook. All of these things can be done through custom audiences, and that's really powerful because it's not just about reaching new audiences, as we've spoken about before, it's about re-engaging people who've already come to your pages and engaged with your content. And the lookalike audiences can kind of spin off the back of a custom. So let's say you create a custom audience of people who've engaged with you on Instagram in the last 30 days. What the lookalike audience does is it takes that seed audience and expands it out. So let's say you've got 2,000 people who have engaged with you on Instagram. Suddenly that can become 500,000 or 2 million using Facebook's technology. So they will find the people who are most behaviorally and demographically similar to those people who are engaging, so allowing you to contact them. You want to make sure your Instagram is a business account linked to your ad account, so you can run ads across Facebook and Instagram. You want to set up your Facebook pixel and add it to your website if you've got a website. If you don't know what a Facebook pixel is, it's basically a way that Facebook can allow you to do retargeting, right? So anyone who comes to your website, Facebook will collect data, and then when they come back to Facebook or Instagram, it allows you to follow them. So you can literally retarget someone who's been on your website with an ad on Facebook or Instagram. You may have seen it from your own life if you've been shopping for something. Let's say you've been looking at shoes online, and then what you start to see in the next few days is those shoes are following you around the internet. That is the pixel at work, okay? And the theory goes, again, it's about advertising theory here, that often it takes kind of 6 different touch points before someone actually goes and buys. So this is about getting about reach and frequency. Again, it's about building up this kind of engagement with your band or your brand, so people are more comfortable, more familiar with you, to the point where they actually go and listen and consume. Right, the next thing you want to do is create a landing page on ToneDen or Hyped It. This is where you can now connect your domain and your pixel. So effectively this is like a kind of a mini website where your Spotify links, your Apple links will live, okay? You're not going to set this live yet because obviously your music isn't out, but you can start to connect your domain so it looks like your website. And this is really critical because this is the only way you can do it now. This is again down to safety, brand safety and privacy. Facebook won't allow you to retarget anyone who's not on your domain. So the ToneDen or Hyped It page has to look like your website. So the domain name might be music.yourartistname.com from ToneDen. And then final thing, which is really important at week 5, submit your track or your EP or album, whatever it might be, to your distributor. So that could be DistroKid, EMU Bands, any of those guys. Get it on there early, so Spotify have as much time as possible to process it, gives you the greatest chance of appearing on a playlist, right? So go early. 5 weeks is a good time to go. Okay, so we're on week 4. Before we get there, just a reminder again, if I've spoken about anything that so far you don't understand, for example, how to set up a Facebook ad account or how to connect your domain to ToneDen or Hyped It, don't panic. So we do have a separate course available where I can guide you through each of those individual elements. So at the end of week 5, you were submitting your music to Spotify, and once it's been once it's been sent to your aggregator or your distributor, probably after a few days or a week or so, they'll give you your Spotify URI. And that's like the unique identifier on Spotify. It's not a URL, it's a URI. Now with that information, it basically means Spotify have received your track and it's on their system. So you can use that to then pitch your music to Spotify. So go into Spotify for Artists, and there's an opportunity to pitch your music, your latest track or latest release, to the Spotify playlist creators. You can also use your URI to set up your Spotify pre-save campaign. We're not going to set it live yet, obviously, but you can use that URI to basically pull in the data from Spotify about that track into your pre-save. You can also, at this point, submit your music to blogs. I'm going to give you a big plug here. Right Cool Music is waiting for your music, so go to rightcoolmusic.com where you can submit for free. You can choose between free and paid reviews, so it's free to submit, but then you can choose paid or free reviews. If you choose paid, the difference being is that there is a greater pool of people, writers, who are likely to listen to your music, so your chances of coverage increase. It doesn't mean to say you can't get coverage for free, but your chances of coverage will increase. Now, by submitting through Right Cool Music, you're also submitting to a number of other blogs. We call it the RCM Indie Collective or Indie Music Collective. So one submission, multiple chances of coverage across blogs, playlists, podcast, all that kind of stuff. So go to Right Cool Music. Muso Soup, very similar service. run by a good friend of ours as well. So send your music to MusoSoup. You do have to pay to submit to MusoSoup, but it's a good service, and it's far cheaper than using a music PR. As we spoke about before, there's no guarantees with music PR. With MusoSoup and Right Chord Music, you're only really paying for the reviews that you actually get. Submit your music to Amazing Tunes if you're in the UK, BBC Introducing. I mentioned at the start, radio doesn't work without reach and frequency, but at the same time, if it's free, then there's no reason not to submit your music. So Amazing Tunes, BBC Introducing, both free, make the most of them. You can also embed your Spotify follow button on your website, and the follow button is really important because every time someone clicks it, your music is added to their release radar playlist. So it's a really powerful button, so put it front and center on your website and encourage people to click it. Now, you remember in the first week we created all the content around your hero idea. This is about now creating the content calendar. So when each piece of content is going to go out into the world, you can schedule it using the Facebook Creator Studio. So this isn't about spending hours and hours every day at your computer. It's about bulk uploading, bulk scheduling, and then being able to sit back or focus on maybe writing a new song or a new EP. So while the campaign is just going out automatically, right? So that's really the power of organization and using these tools. So the Facebook Creator Studio, if you've never used it before, you should better find a link from your artist profile on the left. You can go into publishing tools and then into the Creator Studio. It's really powerful, really simple. You can schedule posts to Facebook and Instagram. So do that for all of your posts. Okay, we're getting close. We're now 3 weeks away from launch. What should you be doing now? Okay, so 3 weeks out, this is when you start running your engagement ads or promoted posts. Now, I say start because if you are a musician who's released music previously, engagement should really be part of your ongoing activity. So hopefully this isn't the first time you try to engage people, but it's another chance to really ramp that up. Okay, so one of the first things to be really aware of when you're making your ads is the Facebook advertising guidelines, right? And I've seen lots of artists fall foul of these for quite simple things. So things like anything that is seen to be or deemed to be adult material. So let's say if someone's kissing or there's a bit of nudity or anything a bit risque, smoking, all of these things can be banned by Facebook. So I think there's 20 different reasons why Facebook can ban an ad, and it's worth having a quick flick through those before you create any kind of ad or spend time doing it, because I've seen lots of artists fall foul of this. So just take some time and make sure your ad doesn't contravene any of those guidelines. Then the next thing to do is to create those ads and obviously run those ads as using the objective video views, or you could use brand awareness as well. The whole reason for doing this ahead of time is to create a pool of engagers, right? You want as many people as possible to have seen your video and watched it and been engaged with it. Now, because what you can then do is retarget those people. Okay, so when we talk about engagement with video, we don't want someone to watch 2 seconds. We want them to watch, 75%, 90% of that ad. So that ad has to be super engaging, has to be interesting, has to be something which is going to capture their imagination. Now, one of the good ways of testing this is to play your ad without sound and think, does this hold my attention? Because if it doesn't, it's not right. And lots of people will consume Facebook and Instagram with the sound off. So if you're relying on your music to be the thing that cuts through, the chances are it's going to be missed. So think about selling with your eyes before your ears. How are you going to engage those eyes? What's your content going to look like? And there's some great examples out there. A band called Porcelain, who we work with, creates some beautiful motion graphic videos, and they get artists to make them for them. Animation is also often very, very powerful, so think about that when you're making your video. But probably the worst type of video you could ever make would be someone standing with an acoustic guitar strumming away. Music in itself is not engaging, so think about those visuals. You can also obviously promote an existing post on Facebook or Instagram as a way of building engagement. It doesn't have to be a dark ad, just going out into the world. But whatever you do, again, run it through the Facebook ad manager. That means you can use more of these audiences you've built earlier in this process. And so you want to test a variety of different creatives and audiences to really understand what is producing the best results ahead of launch. So you might want to target fans of a similar band or artist, different genres. You could try different cities, lots of different ways you could test it, but think of it like a science experiment. You're only changing one thing at a time, so you always know what is driving success or effectiveness. So if you want to test out 3 different creatives, make sure each audience has those 3 creatives as well. Okay, so hopefully you're following along. We're now 2 weeks away from launch. It's getting exciting, you're getting close. You've done a lot of stuff, a lot of work so far, so don't give up now, because now we're getting to the business end of the release cycle. So 2 weeks out from launch, you've got a decision to make, I guess, which is to pre-save or not to pre-save. Now, I know lots of people are obsessed with pre-saves. I kind of sit on the fence, and I'll explain why. So the general principle is good, right? You want people to follow you on Spotify, so when your music is out, they get to hear it. But there's a lot of challenges with pre-save. First of all, most fans don't understand what a pre-save is, and also there's no reward or motivation for the fan to do it. So all they're really doing is clicking a few links, which is a bit clunky, and at that point they can't actually listen to the song anyway. They have to then wait for it to come out. So it's a process, right? So if you are going to do one, then think about how you can build engagement to get people to really understand what we're doing and why they're doing it. And if there's a chance to maybe add a different reward or an additional incentive, so it could be, win something, it could be a signed instrument or a gig ticket or whatever. It could even be a leftover Christmas present. If you've got a bottle of whiskey hanging around, then give it away, right? Give people a reason to engage. But part of the reason why I say I'm not convinced by pre-saves is the fact that really it doesn't mean anything to Spotify, right? We're not counting how many pre-saves you get. All they're really caring about is what happens after release. So if on the day of release or the first 4 or 5 days of release you get an influx of listeners from those pre-saves, then it makes a lot of sense. But if you're not getting those plays, it really doesn't mean anything, right? So the other way of doing it is to say we're not going to invite people to pre-save. We're going to use that kind of one chance opportunity to talk to lots of people, ask them to do something when the song is actually out, when they can benefit by listening and we can benefit by getting that stream. So getting, let's say there's 50 people you've got who you think they're absolutely going to pre-save. Say, not going to get them to pre-save. We're going to go on the day of release. We want you to go and listen to our song now and tell us what you think, right? That is far more effective. Then you can say, if you like the song, we would love you to follow us. Then that way, if we release, future music, you will always find out about it first, right? So it's kind of turning it around and thinking a bit like a date. On a date, you want to get to know someone before you exchange phone numbers, right? You're not going to dive straight in with the kind of proposal to marriage or, the maybe even the dinner. You want to get to know them first, right? And it's the same thing with a pre-save. Pre-save is always like a big commitment before we've even listened to the music. So flip it around. That is kind of the point on pre-saves. You might decide, regardless of all this, you've had success with in the past. If that's the case, then go ahead and do it. You're 2 weeks out, you set it up already, you've got your URI, so connect it up and start that pre-save. But generally, I would say pre-saves are something you push out towards your friends and your family and your closest fans. Again, running a dark ad to promote a pre-save to people who've never come across your music before doesn't make sense. But you could use it as a way of re-engaging existing followers and engagers, okay? So that's pre-saves covered, 2 weeks to go. Okay, we're 1 week away from launch, and I think it's a common mistake that actually when people do get to launch day, it feels like they've done their work. And of course they haven't. Actually, the last week before launch, and of course the moment it comes out, is really when the work really has to kick in. So don't rest on your laurels, you're nearly there, but there's still a lot of work to do. And again, a reminder that if you've seen or heard anything I've spoken about so far, but you get, but you don't really understand how to do it precisely, don't worry, we do have other training courses available just to kind of walk you through it kind of step by step and really show you how to do all of those things. So maybe it was how to use Facebook ads, how to set up the ad manager, or the Creator Studio, for example, to schedule a post. And we've got demonstrations to show you all of those things. So don't worry, we've got it covered. Hopefully this is all making great sense and giving you some ideas about what you could do in the future. So with 1 week to go, this is a chance to update your social media profiles, your banners, maybe on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, to add posts to remind fans that new music is coming, right? You don't want to go too early, but this is a chance to kind of give them something new to look at, maybe a release date, a countdown. All of those things are great ways to kind of get this idea into people's heads that new music is coming. Now you want to continue to push hard as possible if you're doing a pre-save campaign. If you're not, obviously you can ignore that particular line. We want to continue running those engagement ads to build up the largest pool of warm prospects as possible. Remember, think about that car salesman. How are you getting people to engage? Are you getting them to come to your website? Is it more than just watching a video? What's your hero idea? Can you loop that in? If you have an email mailing list of customers, if it's big enough, you can upload this to Facebook audiences. So, if you've done a great job at engaging people and you've got those email addresses, that's another way to retarget. And the day before release, this is really important. You need to make a note of all of your numbers. So how many Spotify streams have you got, followers on Spotify, the same on social media, maybe even website traffic data if you're sending people to a website. Make a note of all those numbers, because what you want to do is be able to see how all those numbers have shifted after the campaign. If it haven't shifted, obviously it hasn't worked. So it's really important to understand what is moving and what are you driving as a result of this campaign. We do that for every single one of our artists. We really track that, all those numbers, to really understand effectiveness. So you're there, we are at launch day, and this is really exciting. So congratulations for making it to the start line. So I can imagine you probably haven't slept much. You are excited. Your song is out on Spotify and all those other streaming platforms. Wake up early, put an alarm on, and make sure that your social media links are all updated. So Facebook, Twitter banner, all of those should be now saying, something about the new release. And you want to make sure that all your links include a link to your landing page. So your Spotify link, if people click on that, they can go to your landing page and listen to your song. Go via the landing page, don't go straight to Spotify. So again, that way it allows you to retarget people who've actually clicked the link. So yeah, every potential link on Twitter, or on Instagram, or Facebook, all make sure it points to the same place. Make sure your artwork is consistent everywhere as before. You want to update your Tone Dead or your Hyped It landing page with the Spotify track link. It's out now, so you can just post it in there. You want to add your lead single, or whatever your release is, for, if it's one song or an EP, whatever it is, add those tracks to your Spotify playlist you made. Make sure you've updated your Spotify artist pick, so it's pushing people to listen to this particular song. And this is where you start running your conversion ads. Now, conversion ads are designed to get people to convert, right? So it's about using your best performing creative, your audiences. So you've hopefully built up a nice pool of engagers that you can retarget. So it's really is kind of zoning in on the best audiences and the best creative that you've identified from your testing pre-launch, right? And the ad is driving people from the ad itself to the landing page and on then to Spotify or Apple, or where people will go to listen. And again, the reason you're doing that is getting rid of the bots and also giving you a chance to retarget. So anyone who comes to your landing page, you can now identify and retarget in the future. Then the final thing here is about thinking about the spend on those conversion ads. So for the first week of release, you want to upweight your spend to get as many people to listen as possible. And again, this increases your chances of triggering those Spotify algorithms. So ideally, think about £15, £20 a day, £10 a day if your budgets are a bit tight. After the first first 4 or 5 days, you can obviously drop that budget down, but give yourself the best chance. And very simply, a very final point here is make sure you are telling as many people as possible about this song or this track or this EP, whatever it might be, and get them to listen. Again, those first 4 days are critical, so anyone who's messaged you on Instagram in the past, drop them a message, get your friends involved, get your family. Again, if you didn't do the pre-save, this is your chance to get everyone to go and listen. Send a mailing list out, encouraging people to listen. But again, make it engaging. So it's not just about listen, it's maybe a question about, which is your favorite track? What did you think of my track? Asking for feedback and engagement allows more of a conversation, is more likely to yield results. So the final step is what you do in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4 after release. Don't fall into a trap of launching and leaving. This is the most crucial time because it's also a time when people can actually listen to the music. So all the stuff that's gone before has really been building up to this moment, right? So get this right. So it's the final part of this free webinar. We're going to talk about what to do once your music is out. How do you promote your music for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, or even longer, 5, 6, 7, or 8 weeks? Well, the first thing to do and the first thing to think about is sending direct messages to the people you know best. So your friends, your family, your followers, whether that's on Instagram, Facebook, or any other channels. Get them to listen and give them a reason to listen. So send them a link, but also send them a question about your music. Maybe ask them which track they prefer best. Does your music remind them of anyone? Is there a certain part of a song you like? Is there a hook they particularly like? Get them to think about the music. That way there's a reason, and more of a reason for them actually to go and listen. So that's the third thing to do. Then think about your paid promotion around that music once you've done the bit which is free, sending those messages. So you might want to run conversion ads on Facebook, and conversion ads can be really effective if you've got a highly engaged fan base. If you haven't got an engaged fan base, then think about running maybe promoted posts using kind of engagement ads. So either promoting existing posts on your wall or using a dark ad to drive engagement to ads you create. It could be a brand awareness campaign, it could be a video views campaign. All of these things can be great ways of getting people to see and hear your music and then click to go and listen. I would tend to avoid traffic campaigns or any objective of traffic in it, just because you tend to get lots of fake clicks and bots. Okay, but again, test these things out, see what works for you. In terms of budget, for the first week of your campaign, we would recommend having a higher budget, ideally around £20 per day. If that's too expensive, then do what you can afford, but I would say a minimum of 10 is really where you would want to be. After that first week, you can drop that budget down. So let's say you do 20 for the first week, then you drop down to 15 and run that for the next 4. I've said here 4 days rather than a week. Again, if you can't do a full 7 days at £20 or £10, then do what works for you. But higher budget at the start to get those Spotify algorithms really firing, and then reduce it. This is the time to follow up with any blogs or playlists or radio sessions. Anyone who said they're interested in featuring your music, and if they haven't already, then give them that nudge. Until they say no, they are opportunities for you. Now, your social media content should now be going out. We've scheduled it in the Facebook Creator Studio early on in this process, so ideally 3 to 5 posts a week, telling a story around your music, not just music is out, go listen, but something more engaging. So that should just be happening. If it's not, then that's definitely something to do for next time. You don't want to be a slave to social media, posting something every day. It's really tough. So always try and block book and schedule that content in advance. Throughout this entire time, continue to review, optimize your ads and your audiences. So if you're seeing that you're getting a great response from a certain country or a certain demographic, then again, maybe narrow in to focus on that. And so you don't have to do conversion ads, you could do other forms of advertising. You don't even have to be on Facebook or Instagram. It could also be on YouTube or Pinterest. Again, just make a note of every ad you run and its performance, so you can really compare which ads are performing best for you. Now, if you've got an interesting story, then you can continue that campaign beyond 4 weeks, so it can go up to 6, 7, or 8. You just don't want to have a campaign where you've only really got 2 pieces of content to share and all you're saying every day is listen to my music, right? If it's too salesy, it's more likely to drive people to switch off and switch on. So that concludes our free webinar. If there's things in this session we've covered but you still have questions about, then don't worry, we've got a paid training course that will go into a lot more detail. So for example, if you want to know about which objective I should be using in Facebook advertising, how to set up Facebook advertising in the first place, if you want to know how to write an engaging press release, if you want to know about Facebook pixels, or how to audit your social media profile to make sure you're actually in a good place to even start promoting, then all of these things and a ton more will be included in our paid course. Now, all the questions and all the content we've produced for this paid course has been based on questions musicians have asked us, right? So it's real world needs, giving you the answers to real world questions. That's really the plan of it. So check it out. But for the time being, I hope you found this course interesting and hope it's given you some inspiration, and we look forward to hearing your music.